Januaryofsuck was always meant to be a goofy thing where I watched bad movies, for laughs, for excuses to watch movies for my year-end worst list, and just to say I did. This year, as things are changed up, I've decided to try to go deeper with what I watch. Not by much, I still have a schedule to keep up with, but a simple, "oh, this is so bad" reaction ain't gonna cut it. And with this being an anniversary, I figured, might as well go with a theme. Let's laugh at some Disney movies. Regardless of whether or not they make high art, sometimes they do, sometimes not, Disney is in it for the money. That's not meant to be an insult, mind you. Businesses, even those for art, require money. Among the company's biggest cash cows are their villains, so it's no surprise that Disney would try to cash in on them. I present to you Descendants, a Disney Channel trilogy all about the offsprings of iconic characters like Beast and Belle, or Mulan, the fairy godmother. Dopey? Oof. Dopey. But most importantly, the kids of the villains. Our main team consisting of Mal, Maleficent's daughter, Evie, the evil queen's daughter, Jay, Jafar's son, and Carlos, Cruella's son. This trilogy is all about the villain kids learning to be good, creating a better life for themselves, and trying to make things better. Also, race. Race is very big here. Let's get to it. So if I'm completely honest, I thought I'd be more annoyed by this than I actually was. I rolled my eyes a few times, sure, but I never felt like it was as bad as the idea sounds. Thing is, I've never been a huge fan of stories exploring the next generation of heroes, or villains for that matter. Though more so on villains, because the idea that everyone stayed relatively close to each other and that they each had kids is kinda silly. And with villains, especially ones like the Disney villains, you just have to wonder, who even considered having kids with them? Assuming we don't get the uncomfortable reveal that it was not an innocent approach. Who fucked Dopey? And before you say I'm overthinking it on the villains, just consider this. Mal, the lead character, uses mind control to get with Beast's son. So hey, that's definitely a way to get kids. One of the more confusing aspects now having seen the film is how much of the movies we know and love are accurate to this world. By all accounts, the movie plays it as if the events are the same. But then, why are the villains alive? Why are the time periods and locales relatively close to each other? Are the movies we've seen just performances based on their lives? Does this mean that they're being extra cruel to people that aren't actually all that evil? Well, that makes it even weirder that the villains are forced to live in the ghetto. It's uncomfortable to think about, but let's put a pin on it and get back to it later.
Something is clearly wrong.
Aside from moral issues, the movie's biggest crime is just being a school film. So much time is dedicated to typical high school drama that the hook of the Disney kids is kinda lost unless an adult shows up or a character proudly announces that they're the child of a Disney character, which always happens, by the way. Who f***ed Dopey? And this only gets worse because, despite being a TV movie, this runs at nearly 2 hours, which just makes it drag more. On the bright side though, at least the movie actually has its climax in the final minutes, rather than add 20 unnecessary minutes all over. Again, a near 2-hour run? Why? Okay, well, again, it's not awful to sit through. In fact, it's slightly more engaging as this installment largely drops the school stuff to be a rescue mission. This time around, Mal feels sick of not being a villain, resulting in her returning to the villain ghetto. But a rival villain child, Uma, daughter of Ursula, wants to get back at her for always one-upping her in the past. One thing I do respect here is that the story actually feels like a continuation. At the start, when I saw the main teens act villainous again, I thought this would be a lazy retread. But soon it became clear that this was just to set up that Mal has become tired of just being the princess she's expected to be in her new position, which is simple, but credit for trying to go in a new area. The biggest loss in this installment is that we don't really get to see the adult villains. Sure, it was cheesy in the first movie, but there's a charm in seeing a bunch of actors play Disney villains as if they're gonna be in the 60s Batman show. That being said, the worst thing is that the film hits its climax pretty early. By the time we had the boat party, I was just kinda done with this movie. Not to mention, it's a little funny that Mal gets upset with Uma pulling the same mind control crap she did in the last installment. Whatever, it gets dealt with easily. And at least Kiss the Girl is just a beat here, unlike the first movie where Be Our Guest was a rap song. Among other dopey things in this outing, wait, who Dopey? We also get a talking dog, who's annoying but thankfully barely involved. Mulan's daughter tags along, but I don't see much point in her being there, beyond your kid-friendly girl power stuff. And again, there's an odd thing with the series painting the villains as if they're representing minorities, which I promise we'll discuss more in a bit. But first... Hey look, more villain kids can come out of the ghetto, but only 4 cause reasons. So by this point, I had a general idea of the franchise. It's too long, even though this one's the shortest of the 3. It's silly, dumb, and has some odd metaphors. Okay, actually bad ones. But again, credit for the sequel moving the story forward. Credit for it being pretty tolerable to sit through. And this one manages to be the best of the 3, despite it once again climaxing way too early. So this time around, things have settled. Mal seems fine with her place and everything seems to be fine, until Hades tries leaving Villain Ghetto Isle. This results in Beast, Belle, Beast Jr., and Mal deciding to close off the villain ghetto forever. But elsewhere, this black racist grandma berates Sleeping Beauty's daughter, resulting in a villain. Aurora Jr. curses Mal, which is pointless since she is hardly cursed, but whatever, it happens. And then she curses the land. We find out Hades did the dirty with Maleficent, so Mal is his kid too. Oh, and this Hades isn't really fun. We get Mal and the other kids teaming up with Uma and her crew, while Dr. Facilia's kid is on hand because all while Aurora Jr. hams it up. And Dopey's kid looks like Nick Cage now. Dopey fucked Cage. Eventually we hit a climax. The movie goes on for a bit, Hades calls out the BS, racism ends with the barrier down, and ghettos are no longer forced upon Disney characters. Hooray! Look, these aren't good movies, but I'm not gonna trash the actors. They're all clearly working with what they got, so who am I to trash their work? And to its credit, the stories aren't awful, in need of extra rewrites on the script and better effects, but CB movies rarely get the budget they need, so I get it. For what it's worth, it's not like I was mad at any point. Confused, bored, and slightly annoyed? Yeah, sure, but everything was tolerable. Hell, even the music wasn't that bad. It wasn't good, but none of it lingered in my mind enough to consider them worse than forgettable. Except the BR guest rap. Honestly, the worst these movies got was in their confused messaging. Speaking of which, look, they don't utter racism, whatever. Doesn't matter. The imagery, phrases, shots, etc. say it all. You could say I'm overthinking it, but when you have characters in a poor neighborhood going to a fancy school where others look down on them and treat them as bad because of where they come from, justifying their fear because of what other members of their family did, it's pretty clear that it's racism. Aurora's mom talks to Mal in a way that reminded me of the ways a bigot would talk to a person of color. Hell, it's the same way some bigots have talked to me before. So this can't be some weird coincidence. It's the closest the movie comes to being uncomfortable for me, and the sequels don't really remedy it. Talking about how villain parents are careless and abusive without flat out saying it, which makes the already uncomfortable minority metaphor much worse. Sure, the series eventually acknowledged some of its issues, like the second movie points out how wrong it is that more kids aren't being helped, but then again that pushes things back to an abusive area. And part 3 has Hades point out the obvious BS that a good kid turned out to be evil, while the resolution is opening all villains to the good land. It's a positive step forward, but still drenched in messy messaging. I mean, look, I'm not even going too deep into this, because there's also a case of gentrification regarding our lead kids. But look, this is already going too long, and I'm not sure I'm the best equipped to dive very deep into this. Are the Descendants movies the worst thing ever? Nah. For the most part, they're tolerable films with some bad baggage regarding race metaphors. But it's not like it gets so bad that I'm upset or would stop kids from watching it. They're just a series of dumb movies made to sell more Disney products. I get if others, especially in younger groups, like it, but I don't. Here's hoping Januaryofsuck 5 surprises me with the following movies, as this kinda did.
Ask the dishes. Yeah, they can sing, sing, sing. They can dance, dance, dance. After